All right, let's get right into it and absolutely shatter one of the biggest economic myths out there. We're talking about Japan. For years, you've been fed this very specific, neat little story about why their economy just hit a brick wall. But today, we're tearing that whole narrative apart.
Let me ask you something. Do you think Japan's economy is just dying of old age? I mean, you probably assume an aging population and natural demographic decline just naturally killed off their growth, right? Like it was just this inevitable destiny. Honestly, that is the standard excuse everyone uses.
Well, actually, wrong. You've basically been lied to. It turns out the government's own flip-flopping and massive indecision was the real silent killer here. Not demographics, not bad luck, just pure, unadulterated hesitation. Politicians simply couldn't make up their minds, and it completely paralyzed an entire nation. And you know what? We've got the hard data to actually prove it.
So, how do we actually know this? Well, researchers didn't just sit around and guess. They essentially built this massive data prediction engine. Step 1, they scanned 4 major Japanese newspapers going all the way back to 1987. Step 2, they hunted for this uncertainty triangle. Basically, looking for articles that mention the economy, policy, and uncertainty all in the exact same breath, capturing the literal moment businesses threw their hands up because they didn't know what the government was going to do next. Step 3, they filtered out the noise. And the result? A totally objective panic index. Guys, they literally found a way to measure fear.
Section 1. The interrogation. Who creates the biggest panic? Okay, so what exactly is making these Japanese businesses so terrified to just spend their money? Who's actually pulling the strings of all this nationwide panic?
The data paints such a clear picture here. A massive 56% of the panic comes straight from fiscal policy. We're talking taxes and government spending. Monetary policy? That's a distant second at 24%. It's not trade wars, it's not crazy currency swings. The biggest monster in the closet is literally the government's own checkbook.
Just imagine, for a second, trying to run a business in that kind of chaotic environment. 6 prime ministers in 6 years. A major consumption tax that got postponed not once but twice. Government targets just became completely meaningless. This reveals the massive hidden cost of political instability. When leaders play musical chairs and constantly rewrite the rules, businesses just freeze up. It really is that simple.
Now, even though domestic taxes usually dominate this panic meter, we do see a wild, sudden anomaly pop up in the data. Fast forward to 2019, and global trade fears just explode, hitting 28%. Why? US-China trade tensions. Japan basically got caught in the crossfire of 2 massive superpowers. So it shows us that, yeah, local politicians cause most of the hesitation, but global fear? That stuff is highly contagious.
And the historical roadmap proves the point perfectly. Watch this. 1998, the Asian financial crisis. 2008, Lehman Brothers. 2011, the U.S. debt downgrade. 2016, Brexit. 2020, COVID-19. Every single time there was a major global shock, Japan's domestic uncertainty index absolutely skyrocketed. Basically, whenever the world shakes, domestic policy panic just goes through the roof.
Section 2. The crime scene. The lethal price of hesitation. So here is the absolutely crucial point. What actually happens to the real world when politicians hesitate? Does all this measured newspaper panic really crash the actual economy?
50 points. Keep that number in your head. That's our magic number. Let's see what happens when this policy panic meter jumps by just 50 points, which, by the way, is a pretty standard shock to the system. This isn't just some theoretical exercise in a university lab. This is a real-world disaster playing out. The economy just bleeds. When that panic spikes by 50 points, factory production drops by 2%. And business investment? It absolutely plummets by nearly 4%. We are talking millions and millions of dollars, just wiped off the table in the blink of an eye. And why? Because no sane CEO is going to build a massive new factory if they have absolutely no clue what the tax rate is going to be next year.
The researchers put it incredibly bluntly. They said, uncertainty provides an incentive to delay or forego investments and retard hiring. Translation: when leaders flip-flop on their policies, companies just stop hiring full-time staff. They switch over to part-time workers just to avoid the commitment. At the end of the day, it's everyday people who end up paying the ultimate price for political indecision.
Section 3. The cross-examination fatal blind spots. Okay, let's see how this actually holds up against some real academic scrutiny. We've made some pretty aggressive claims here today, but is this study actually bulletproof? We need to cross-examine the data.
First off, let's talk about the massive upgrade here. This new research totally destroys the old standard.
See, the old study back from 2016 only used 2 newspapers and, wildly, completely ignored seasonal media trends. But this new engine? It uses 4 major papers, it patches those seasonal glitches, it uses way smarter Japanese keyword filters. So it's just a much sharper, way more accurate lens for looking at economic reality.
But to be fair, here is the fatal blind spot. We can't prove 100% pure causality. Why? Well, because the media absolutely loves a crisis. Sensational newspaper coverage might honestly just be exaggerating bad news to sell more papers. So, are the politicians causing the panic, or is the panic just the media reacting to an economy that's already failing? Honestly, it's the ultimate chicken and egg problem.
Which leaves us with a kind of terrifying final thought. If hesitation costs billions, if political indecision literally crashed Japan's economic potential for decades, well, how much is your own government's indecision costing you right now? Seriously, think about that the next time you see a politician delay a big